Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I think I have just seen some of you in the last Zoom thing. It's been a whole day of this. Um, my name is Khadija Ahmed. I am the Community Impact Manager at Good Shepherd Food Bank. I am also a owner of a African mobile market. I am also a chef who works with schools on introducing culturally relevant food and advocating especially to bring more food that is relevant to the community that is showing up here in Maine. And it is my pleasure to be here with you this afternoon.
Thank you, Khadija. Appreciate that. So today, as we move forward throughout this discussion, which we've labeled Maine's Ethnic Buffet, we're going to be talking really about Maine's role in assisting immigrants, and folks that are new to the state of Maine in sourcing locally relevant food that's also culturally relevant as well. We're finding that there's a lot of difficulty around that. So we're trying to come up with solutions to really combat that so folks can obtain, nutritious food that is relevant to their lives, not something completely new. So before we really get into that, I do invite anyone that's a guest today in the room, if you have any recipes that utilize locally sourced ingredients that you'd love to share, feel free to drop them in the chat box, whether it's a link, whether it's written out, it's a Google Doc. We're going to be passing that along after the fact, anyone that joined in today. So we'd really love for that. So let's see here. So Khadija, tell us, how did you get into this work? What was kind of the catalyst for you to enter into this food systems work?
Well, I've been in the food system for almost a decade now, but it was mostly just being here in Maine and finding nothing that was relevant to me. And if I did find food that was relevant to my culture, it was just old food. Because African mostly we eat fresh food, and you will find food that is simply old. It has lost the taste, it has lost the color, it's no longer something that look appetizing, and just working toward finding what to feed my family. So I started wondering, why are we missing this stuff? Where are the holes in the food grid here? And that's how I got into the African market, or I don't know what came first. I guess the work came first, and then the African market came after, and then they work at Good Shepherd, they work at Pebble Street, then at Good Shepherd, then at the schools. So it's mostly just not finding what I needed.
Yeah, that's really important, honestly, because if you can't find what you need, then you can almost guarantee that your neighbor probably can't find what they need as well. Now, I think that this connection really to food systems, especially if we're talking about immigrants, it's really connected to social and racial justice as well. So I'm really curious, what is your opinion on that? Why is this important? Why should more people really know about these connections and how we can do a better job in the state? Big question.
Very silly question, but very important question.
Some people don't know.
Very silly, but very important. Very silly in the sense that we ask this question that to me sound like, duh, why do you think food will be important? Why do you think people should have what they need, what they identify with? There is this scientist who talks about the fact that you are only the egg that was in your mother, that was in your grandmother. So you are only supposed to be eating and be attracted to the food that your grandmother ate. And somehow we have made food relevancy something that is special, like it has to be the more expensive thing. It's something special. When it's culturally relevant, then you add the price to it, you add the limitation that you have to access. It becomes something foreign, but it is something very natural. Come the part where I say it's a very silly question, because what will you really want to eat? What will you have for Thanksgiving? You want that apple pie. You don't have to explain or justify why you need that apple pie. Why is it left to us, people of color? Why is it left to us, immigrants, to come to you and justify the need of us having what is relevant to us? Why are you putting us in that place where we have to be, hey, this is relevant to my culture, this is important to my culture. Why do I have to explain to you that this is important to me? I should not have to explain to you that this is important to me. It is my human rights. Food is a human right. Why are we putting this question even to the table? Why are we bringing this question to the table? It is relevant because it is important. It is important because it is necessary for my well-being and the well-being of my people, just like your food is important and relevant to you.
100%, 100%. Food, water, shelter, right? So at the end of the day, these are the minimums. These are really the absolute minimums. So with that being said, although we know that it's kind of like a duh moment, that it's like food is necessary to survive, what is going on in this world? What programs, maybe, or at least what are you working on, specifically to ensure that this just becomes a natural part of life, and it doesn't become part of the struggling part of life?
So at the moment, I'm very much focused on halal meat and bringing halal meat to the food bank. The food bank being one of the biggest place you can find that stuff, so you can kind of trickle down to pantries and to people in need who access pantry. It is bringing halal meats to food bank, and we at Good Shepherd have been doing that work. We have halal meats now where we can go and our partner can come and order halal meat. It is still at a price that is not accessible to everyone, so pantries also are struggling to get that. But my work right now is just focused on finding new way of bringing halal meat to the state of Maine, because even the halal meat that we have now at Good Shepherd is coming from a different state. It's not grown here in Maine. It is sourced from out of state, which is money living state, opportunity living state, to go to somebody else who's not bringing that money back to our states. And we're leaving a lot of workers out here who can benefit from that. And there is the conversation around Maine Farm, and there is the conversation around 5 Pillar. Both of these people been working for so long and been speaking on this subject for so long, speaking on the importance of halal meat, but all they get is little grants here and there that are not helping to accomplish the work that need to be done. So we need to ask ourselves, are we not helping them the way that we know that they actually need help to accomplish this, because it's halal and we don't know what is halal and it's foreign to us and we just don't want to do the work? Or what is keeping us from truly helping them and accomplishing this? Since I have joined Good Shepherd, a lot of grants, I have advocated a lot for 5 Pillar, and they have received a lot of grants to Good Shepherd, but it's 10,000, 5,000 for a project that need $1 million. I have advocated a lot for Maine Farm, and they finally got a grant from Feeding America that can help them obtain and start slaughtering animals, but it's not USDA approved. So if it's not through USDA, although they have the animal, although they can slaughter the animal, like a small business, I can go to Dawood as a Muslim person and purchase that meat. But Good Shepherd still can't purchase from them because of regulation and because they are not under USDA. all these barriers. So every time you think you have accomplished one, there is another barrier. And I'm always saying that bureaucracy kills most progress. And there are some old white dude who made up all these laws that we're still following until now, and it's just getting us nowhere. So nothing against you white old men who are in this meeting. Thank you for being here. You sucks. You simply suck. And we need to come up with new way of making progress. The other part of work that I'm doing is bringing farmers of color who are growing vegetables that are relevant to them and to their culture, to Good Shepherd, so we can have those food through Manor Feeding Manors. So Manors Feeding Manors, which is a program from Good Shepherd where we can get that vegetables, get these farmers to grow this vegetable and be able to distribute it through our partners' pantries. So people who are accessing pantries have access to these fresh vegetables that they recognize. It's such a, personally, this work brings me so much joy, because a few years back, I got a grant from Cultivating Community, and I will just load my truck with these beautiful vegetables and not going anywhere particularly, just driving around Portland. I will see an old African woman and just open my truck and say, hey, do you recognize any of these vegetables? Would you like some of this? And you have to see their face. Some will cry, some will hug me, some will invite me to their house, some will be like, you want to meet my children? I want you to talk to my grandson. Are you married, by the way? I'm like, I'm old and I have a bunch of children. Trust me, your child or your grandchild doesn't want me. But all of that is brought just because of one bouquet of sweet potato leaf. And it's so impactful. It's not even like flour. It brings them so much joy. And for some of these older immigrants, sometimes it's the first time that they've seen this vegetable in this form since they left home. And it's just so impactful. I know most of you guys don't get the privilege to have access to these stories like me, because that's what fuels my work. That's what fuels me. Even on the days that I'm like, I'm very tired, I don't really want to go out there. White people truly got on my nerves today. I don't want to see them or talk to them. I remember those stories, I remember those faces, and I get to hold on to that, and I get to get up and go back out there and do this work because it truly matters and it truly is impactful. I think that answers your question, Rose.
No, definitely. Thank you. I love the answer. I love the answer. It makes me think though that, okay, so I know for me growing up in Maine, I do my best, to shop locally, but it's often very challenging due to the cost, right? And you mentioned, when we think about what's culturally relevant or what's this and that or what's organic or what have you, there always seems to be a higher cost. So I'm curious, do you think that the state, or the government needs to do more to impart change, or do you think it's possible from us on the ground level to really make a difference? Enough of
I think both need to be helping. The government needs to do something about it, but it's very hard to make things move up there, and I have no intention to getting involved up there. I feel like down here, we can still make these changes. We can make changes that are affecting our neighbor in a way that is relevant to us. Very easily. We have farmers of color who are growing vegetables that aren't being sold the right way because it's applied in a white lens. When you talk about farmer markets, we have vegetables here. A farmer can grow sweet potatoes. They can grow the African eggplant and then take it to the farmer market. But the farmer market is a very white environment. For any person of color, for any immigrants, it's not something easy that's you just gonna wake up on a Saturday morning, start thinking about who's gonna watch my children, because everybody knows immigrants. We have way too many children, and we have these children because we don't have roots. We lost our people. We came here alone, and we kind of trying to make up and create our own community. Then you have to find somebody to watch your kid on a Saturday morning, for you to leave your house and walk to the farmer market and just be like, wow, this is not how I remember the market being back home. Everybody around me doesn't look like me, but I have to walk all the way down there. There is this one farmer that I know. Then if I have food stamp, I have to stop at the corner and try to get food stamp coin or whatever the issues are. It's just so many barriers that we can work as a community and remove. You are only as strong as the weakest one, and we just keep forgetting about them. And I don't want to say that there is no help out there. There is help out there, but the help that is out there is for white poor. It's only catering to white poor people. It's not really catering for immigrants. And even if there is a bill that is passing and they will give it a long name and say, this bill will be for the immigrant. Well, go and look for who's running that bill. Some white dude who has no idea about what are the problem of an immigrant, what they truly need. And if they end up learning a few key words, because in this food equity thing, you will hear a few words that will keep repeating. Right now, everybody's talking about culturally relevant, culturally relevant. That's just a word that came a few years back, 2 or 3 years ago, but we've been hungry all this time. We're gonna be hungry again in the next few years, whatever years it's gonna take to resolve all this hunger issue. So once they pick up a few words and they start throwing it out, and you're like, maybe work is being done. Work is not being done. Work is not being done because I'm selling, as a business owner, I'm still selling 600 grams of amaranth for $7. Who can afford that? Immigrants are making this change, are making this cut to be able to afford that vegetables, when in the next plot, in the next town, amaranth is a weed. It's just dying out there. No one is talking about packing it. We're packing broccoli at Good Shepherd. I'm like, more broccoli, really? How many broccoli do we need? How much broccoli can one population consume? Anaford has a lot of broccoli. Why do we need to freeze more broccoli? And don't you worry, I'm putting it out there. I'm on their face all day long about that broccoli business, about Brussels sprouts. I don't know how many lettuce heads we still need, how much of that stuff we need to keep growing. Why aren't we spreading the support? Why aren't we working toward using the resource we have on supporting other people and other organization or other group of population that is not just as privileged as we are, to sit here and talk about this?
So Khadija, what are these foods? What are they? So you mentioned that some farmers, are tossing foods that can be used, in communities. Imagining fish, is another example. What in your experience have you found that is being grown here, or maybe that could be grown here, but it's not being utilized? Like specific examples. I'm just curious, so we can put that out there. We can put the names out there and in the world,
There are so many vegetables that are not consumed here. What is being spoken about right now is the sweet potato leaves and the amaranth, but you also have the squash leaves. Nobody eats squash leaves here. Squash leaf where I'm from is a big deal. There is beans leaves. It's a big deal. It's very much consumed in the Somali Bantu community. There are so many other vegetables that in the eyes of the American farmer, it's just trash or not food that is left there to be composted. What about I just showed Doug last time he was at my store. I showed him the fact that we have squash seed, the pumpkin seed. The pumpkin seed is a very big deal in the African culture because it's so much of the, it has high protein and used a lot in the cooking of all Africa, but here it just thrown away. Everybody drinks around October when they get their pumpkin. What do they do with the pumpkins? It goes in the trash. Rarely somebody will be like, okay, I'm gonna roast it, but it's not something that is used as food. It's just being thrown away. That is such a big market. I'm always thinking about these things. I'm like, why am I purchasing this pumpkin seed from Africa? It's coming all the way from Africa to here, while we have it here and we grow thousands and thousands of pumpkins every year. Those pumpkins leaf is food, it's going in the trash. Pumpkin seed, food, going back in the trash. No one is using that, and not because I have that knowledge, but a lot of my people have even more knowledge than me. No one is bringing them to the table to ask this question and get these business idea. America is about capitalism. Can we apply that in those sources? I'm not speaking about bringing new ideas that are so revolutionary that you like, c'est la révolution, this doesn't exist. What are you talking about? These are things that are already here, in Maine, that are already being grown here in Maine, that we can use to feed our people and feed other states too. And fish, that's a very exciting subject to me because we eat a lot of fish. The fish head is a big deal. I did some focus group about a year and a half ago with the Gulf of Maine Research Institute on what to be able to simply identify what fish immigrants want to purchase and why are they not consuming most fish that are caught here in Maine. And some of the things that we find out are the same things that I was talking about from the beginning, but we needed those data to be able to explain this, that listen, after work, when I'm done working, I'm tired, I've been housekeeping, I've been cleaning the hotels, I've been doing all this work. When I'm coming to Anna Ford, I don't want to talk to some white man who will be like, what do you want? I can't hear you. You have an accent. What are you saying? Speak up. Why can't Anna Ford have the fish that I want to purchase in the freezer? And by fish, I mean a whole fish. I don't want a frozen block of something that I can't recognize what it actually is. A whole fish with its head, which will be actually way cheaper for Anna Ford to bring that fish whole, cut down the processing and cut down the waste and just bring me the whole fish in the freezer. And what type of fish that we are consuming out of America that is caught here in the Gulf of Maine, that if it's not even the exact same fish, but that look like the fish that we have. I have this paper here. I can send it to you guys if you want it. It's a lot of it everywhere. So you have the haddock, you have the white hake, you have the Atlantic pollock and the Acadian redfish. The Acadian redfish is actually one of my favorite, and I've been introducing it a lot in the schools, the middle school and the high school, and even the little children at the elementary school. They are all so happy to have this piece of fish because it's very soft and it's not very fishy. And it isn't really a big jump. It isn't a big thing to start serving children fish that look like fish. That's what everybody else around the world does, compared to grinding the fish and making it into a fish stick and having children thinking that fish come out of the sea as a stick and not just as a whole thing. There is no, we have removed so many steps. We have removed so many liaison that we have with our food, that now kids think French fries grows as French fries or fish come as fish sticks. Why can't we bring the fish back? Why can't we bring the fish back as a whole fish? Yes, let's have the processed fish, because there are some days myself, I'm like, I'm not cleaning this down fish. I want fish, but I'm not cleaning it. Can somebody clean it for me? But there is also the important part of touching that whole fish, acknowledging that this life was given for you to be fed, utilizing every part of that fish, and just being hand-on and being more careful, because if I'm consuming fish that is coming from the Gulf of Maine, yes, I will think twice about throwing the plastic in the sea. I'll be thinking about what will my fish eat for me to come and eat it tomorrow or serve it to my children tomorrow. Anyway, yeah, that's the story about fish, and I can go on about fish until tomorrow, because we consume dry fish, smoked fish. The smoked fish that I sell come from Nigeria. My husband is from Nigeria, so he will order smoked fish from Nigeria, which is just out of my mind. Like, we have fish here. Why is fish getting in the airplane, coming all the way here, when we can smoke the fish here? We don't like the smoker, we don't like the employee, we don't like the fish. What is making it so hard for us to bring this fish to the table? Yeah, Rose.
I agree. The whole fish, the head, we want the tail, we want the eyeball, everything, everything. So thank you. So I wanted to pause for a second. If we want to open the room, I think.
Ibrahim may be trying to speak, but he is on mute.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I was just explaining something to one of my friends. But yeah. Hi, my name is Ibrahim Mohamed. I'm working and supporting Usukan food truck. I'm working alongside Mohamed Dekow. He's not available right now, so I'm involved in the youth project in this project, and I know he probably has more knowledge or of it. But I do have some, if you guys do have any questions for me or geared towards Mohamed that I can answer. And it's nice to meet you. I've heard a lot about you, Khadija, so it's nice to finally meet you. Yeah, thank you. And nice to meet everyone else. I know Jonah, Doug, Chris, but nice to meet you, Rose, Caroline, and Jim, and Sarah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We'd love to hear you talk about what's been going on, with Azukin, and feel free to share anything you think that adds to the conversation, if you have anything that comes to mind.
And Ron, yeah, nice to meet you, Ron. So yeah, so with Usukin, we're working with the Maine Marinara project. I think that's one of our bigger projects right now. Getting the youth involved. The farmers here, practically, trying to have a bigger presence for the Usukan food truck. And just, I think it's a really good project that can help integrate our community better. So I'm really excited and glad to be a part of this. And thank you, Ron, for giving Usukan and us an opportunity to do this. I think it'll be an amazing project.
Ibrahim, do you want to talk about the menu some? Because everybody will get a chance if they come to the Winthrop next week to have you to go to the truck for lunch. But just so, some of the relevance of the menu items they have, that would be great to hear.
Yeah, so we have sambusas. So we'll have, I believe, beef sambusa, chicken, and veggie sambusas. There'll also be Somali chai tea. And sambusas are one of my favorite Somali foods, and they're really delicious. I think everyone is gonna enjoy them. So yeah, we're excited. If you have not yet had sambusas, I think you're in for a treat.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So let's see here. I mean, there's a lot of information that has been presented. So I really would love to open up the room if anyone has any questions or comments or any projects they're working on, or even, you know, ideas for how we can collaborate. And I think it is really too about really integrating communities, right? Now, it's not always just about this community over here, this community over here. Maine, we know, is a very small community overall. So how do we get people talking to each other? How do we get people to share foods, share recipes? And like Khadija said, just make it normal, right? Not make it this whole big extravagant thing. So if anyone has any questions or comments or really anything they'd love to share, we can take some time to open it up before we have any other questions for the folks in the room.
I think I wanted to kind of dig into the fish one more time, Khadija. It's especially because you're a shop owner. It's, you know, we connect with different fish houses in the city of Portland, and it's what are they missing to bring you on as a customer, besides always wanting to fillet a fish, because that's what they do, is they get it, you know, from the fish pier. It comes off the boats. First thing they do is fillet it so it's ready to go, because that's what they were used to making. So I think it's understanding what are the connections that are missing from those folks to get it to your store.
I will always advocate for representation. One is the lack of representation. If someone decided to walk to a fish market at the harbor, everybody's white there, and nothing against that. And this is Maine, and Maine is white, but doesn't mean you can't employ a person of color who will be there and be welcoming me when I come to purchase that fish, because it is also an extra trauma that I'm willing to take on just so I can buy my fish. Why is it all the way up down there at the thing in May, at the port there, where you kind of need transportation to get there? Where is the buses? Why don't we have it on Forest Avenue, where everybody knows where the stores are? And if you walk in the stores in Forest Avenue and ask people who are selling fish, all the halal stores, they will tell you their fish are coming out of state. None of their fish is from here. I sell fish from Argentina. I've never been in Argentina. I will really like not to be eating Argentinian fish. It's gotta make sense somehow. We have to keep track of not only where our food is coming, but the relation we have with that food. Yes, I say that you are the egg that came from your mother and your grandmother, so I wanna eat African fish. But now that I'm in Maine, now that I have children who are Mainers, should I keep feeding my Mainer children African fish? Why can't I find the middle ground of feeding them fish that is here, and once in a while, African fish also? Just making it accessible to everyday person. Do you want to really go into a fish shop there at the port and pull out your food stamp card, your SNAP EBT card? It's an embarrassing thing. Do you want to be embarrassed to be able to access that salmon head? Is it really worth it for you? It's all these things. It's just all these things that the fish industry can easily find out if they truly value this customer and truly wanted the access of those markets. They can find out very easily. You have it at Anaford. Like I said, not only it's a fillet, but it's behind the counter. And whatever you find frozen when you're leaving work late, sometimes the guy is already gone. So you have to be a stay-home mom, or you have to be someone who can come during your lunch time, or you have to have some access to some type of privilege for you to work at Anaford and speak to this person about your fish. It's just not accessible for everybody else.
think you bring up a really good point. You know, I'm thinking about snapper fish, which we eat in our family a lot, you know, and to get it from a local shop is imported, right? That's frozen is maybe $12 a pound. To get it from the local fish shop is $16, $17 a pound. So I feel like, you know, how do we balance that at the end of the day, knowing that until there's more of a demand, you know, it's going to be more expensive. Is it a matter of, you know, subsidies? Is it a matter, you know, of nonprofits or Feeding America or whoever, you know, to make up that difference? Or I'm wondering if folks have other opinions around that, you know, or ideas around that.
Can I speak to you guys about schools and the importance of bringing culturally relevant food at schools?
Please go ahead.
The American diet being so full of sugar and very highly processed, we have these immigrant children who are coming, and if not the first week, because we don't give children time to adjust. If not the first week, it's the second week they're going to school while they're still homeless and they're still not dressed the way other children are dressed. We send them to school, and first thing as they come, it's sugar, sugar, sugar. When I'm developing recipes for schools and getting those recipes accredited, they will let you put as much sugar as you want. But every tablespoon of salt has to be measured. Every tablespoon of oil has to be measured. But I can go in there and say, each child can have a quarter cup of sugar in this recipe and it won't matter. The USDA will be like, yeah, add more sugar to that. So these children now are pumped with all this sugar, are sent to a new environment. Everybody remember being a child and being in a new school, how lost you are. You have the language barrier. Nobody looks like you. You are now fed this food that are reacting badly to your system. And you are asked as a child of color to perform, if not at every other kid level, better than the other children. I mean, that just drives me nuts. I cannot comprehend how, as a society, we are allowing this to happen. And we are accepting this as just, well, they're gonna adapt. Because the way us immigrants adapt to the food, it's not, the American diet is not by eating it all at once, breakfast, lunch, dinner. It's because we have it for breakfast, maybe lunch, and then you go back home, you have something that is culturally relevant to you, something your mom or dad made. And then little by little, you get to adjust to it, yet you feel crappy. If you eat a whole cake, you will feel crappy. If you have a whole soda, you will feel crappy. We send our kids to school. We are asking them to perform. We are asking them to behave. Then we're pumping them with all these chemical, and we're pumping them with all this sugar. And we're like, well, Black kids don't behave at school. Well, they don't listen. Well, you poison them when they got to you. How do you expect them to function? How do you expect them to behave if you are poisoning them? And you also expect them to just behave accordingly because you like eat food, you didn't have it to begin with. That's the same conversation I hear a lot about, like, immigrants at the expo. Why are they not eating this food we're giving them? If they were hungry, they will eat it anyway. You are poisoning them. That's why they are not eating it. At first, when you have that big meal, you are full, and then later on you start feeling sick. It doesn't take long before you start associating you feeling sick with lunch you had or breakfast you had. We are used to this, so we are not going to make changes. My children, if I dare saying no more donut in this household, they will leave me. They'll be just like, forget you, woman, we are not staying with you anymore, it's over. So donut still is welcome, but what is the balance? What is the balance, especially at school? Some of the children that we send at school, we really don't know what is going on in their homes. It is so important to bring only not culturally relevant food to this kid at school, but because as a society, we don't really know what is going on at home. Some are homeless, some are in living with abusive parents, some will not have access to those meals. If we are in charge of serving them breakfast and lunch, can we at least make sure that the breakfast and lunch that they are getting is the best meal we can provide for them? Can we make sure that we like, you know what? We don't really know what is going to happen in the afternoon. We don't know what is going to happen at night. But right now that we have you, we want you to be okay. And we want you to know that we got you. And even if we can't help you for then, can we help you for now and give you something that is relevant to you? That's something that maybe your mother won't be able to make for you at home. Again, I'm very passionate about this issue. I can talk about it until tomorrow because I simply cannot see a world where we are not taking care of our children and we are not thinking about our future in a way that, yeah, we got screwed. Yeah, we have so much sugar. We have all this bad oil and bad fat, but can we fix it for our kid? They don't have to pay the price that we are paying.
So you work just in schools to provide these services of education and, you know, developing recipes and things of that nature? How does that work? How does someone work with you, or how does the school work with you on these issues?
So it's often a school director. You won't believe what I have to do to get this work done. So
Oh, I know.
I have, first of all, to go to my boss at Good Shepherd, who's going to go to his boss and convince them to give me money that I can give to the school. So the school can come back with that money and pay me to bring them people, or pay me to pass the money, because often they are not really paying me, they're paying the other people, but because the other people don't have paperwork to do this work, so, or they don't have the qualification, or they are just not trusting them because they haven't been in the industry, to pay these people to come in the school and prepare sometimes this meal for students. And a lot of conversation with food director, a lot of conversation with teacher on trying to attach some type of education with the meal serve. If we are serving rice and beans and chicken that is halal, and it's maybe from Congo or Angola, I want the teacher to be able to attach that lesson to that meal. I want the teacher to speak to the students. Where is Angola? Why are we seeing more Angolan here in Maine? Why are they coming here? Who in your classroom is from Angola? How do we acknowledge these students? Recognize his culture, welcome him to be a new American, and still just sit in the table and have this lunch from his culture and be happy to be a kid together. That wasn't your question. Your question was about how to get to me. How to get to me, like I said, it's super hard, and often I don't have enough time to be able to do all this work. And I'm really, truly working on a project right now called the BIPOC Booster from Good Shepherd, to be able to grow or train more people to come and do this work. Or you can always also get with me through my LCC. And with that, I will bring you these services without me being present there all the time, because I'm only one person. I like to joke that I have octopus hand and I can do a bunch of stuff at once, but it is still only one head, and sometimes I just get tired. But my role will be to remove these barriers that people of color or people from my country can't really bypass to get in work in schools. I'm talking at the moment with the food director at South Portland School Department because they have all this group of new students, but they don't have any person in the cafeteria who's a person of color. They don't have any Black woman. I need a Black woman to be on that counter. So when she look in that Black child eye, she can recognize that this child is not doing well. She can cross and go and hug that child and say, I don't know what is going on at home, but look what I have for you. And tomorrow when you come, I'll be here again. Because every child needs that. Every child should have that. Anyway, this gets me very emotional. I just don't understand why we are not doing better as a society to resolve these issues.
Thank you, Khadija. Appreciate that. So again, if anyone, has anything they want to input, into the chat or into the room, I don't think we're probably gonna take the full time, that is allotted to us today. But happy to open the room up if folks want to introduce themselves, and the organizations they're from. And we'll give Khadija a break, as the one person who has really been talking throughout this whole thing. So yeah, happy to know who's in this space with us as well. Thank you.
Sure,
Sorry, can I jump in for just a second? Khadija, what schools do you work at right now? What schools are you focusing on in Androscoggin County? You're muted.
South Portland School Department, Westbrook School Department, and Portland School Department. And by the schools, I'm saying department because it goes also to elementary and high school and middle school and everything in between.
Do you foresee working in any Lewiston Auburn schools at all?
Yes and no. No, I don't really want to do the work. Yes, if I have to, but it's not because Lewiston doesn't have people who can do this work. I feel like there are so many people better than me out there. They are just not willing to talk about this, and I'm very privileged. I'm very privileged to be able to express myself and say these things to you, and to access these spaces and say these things. That's just a privilege that I have. If you went in Lewiston and asked, I bet you there are a lot of people who can do this work way better than me, who have more patience and more time, because my patience be running short. Who can take over this? You need to ask yourself, how do you go in your community and find people who can do this work? Even if you came to me, I would like for you to come to me, not so I can work with you or with your school forever. I would like for you to come with me so I can help you identify the people who can do this work.
Ron, did you have something that you wanted to say to the group?
Sure, I'll just talk a little bit about the Greens project we did last year. That was with funding from Soul Foundation. And so we worked with the Wayside Food Pantry and Penny Jordan at Farms for Food Equity. And our goal was to really look at what other greens are on farms. We really pulled on previous work that Wayside had done in the ethnic communities about what's missing from our pantry offerings, and what's missing, like Khadija says, from the school lunch line and other places. So one of it's going to be supplies. So anywhere from the wayside distributions all the way through St. Mary's Nutrition Center really said there's a big demand for fresh greens. And we, being the other look at it is what happens in the wintertime, and can we actually blanch and freeze greens for distribution, and will people accept those as being okay? Because most of the time, fresh is going to be better in most communities. So that was a good project. We froze 1,000 pounds of mostly collard greens, but also other brassica leaves, including the Brussels sprout tops. And we used Inner Presence to supply a chef from the Democratic Republic of Congo. So she showed us how to work with those meals in the kitchen, just like Khadijah's talking about. But she also then cooked those meals for focus groups in the community. So we were able to ramp that up this year. So we've gotten additional funding from Sewell Foundation to move to 30,000 pounds of vegetables to go into the food banks around southern Maine, and also we got an additional grant through the specialty crop block grant system to expand that to Lewiston, Auburn, to St. Mary's. And what we wanted to do was really emphasize and use the ethnic organizations such as Inner Presence and others to really present, here's what that, the colored green might not be exactly what it was, or sweet potato leaves might not be ready to go in the marketplace in Maine at this point, but here are some greens that are there. So how to work with fresh and also frozen greens and other vegetables. So that's one of the projects we're trying to work with and really bring farmers along with it. And now also out of that is working with the socially disadvantaged other farmers, such as Liberation Farms, to be growing some of those products. So that's kind of another stop on the buffet line, if you're being. But so, any questions on that project? Give us a shout.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate that. Doug, I think you have connection to, is it Springworks Farm in Lisbon? Maybe you can talk a little bit about what they're doing.
Yeah, well, I was wondering what we can do, when I visited Khadijah at her place, and she gave me the tour, and we were looking at packages of dried tilapia that were flown in from either China or Vietnam, which is a long way to travel, that uses a lot of fossil fuels. I haven't reached out to them directly yet, but I know that there's a farm in Lisbon, Maine called Springworks. That's an aquaponics farm that uses, I believe, a closed loop system. So they've got a fish farm with tilapia, and the waste from that is then funneled down and used to feed the greens there. And I came across an article that they produce over 60,000 pounds of fresh tilapia every year. And I'm wondering how we could open up a conversation with them and our immigrant communities that, hey, there's a really strong, culturally appropriate market that needs this in fresh form. And what can we do to maybe facilitate even the beginnings of that conversation? I'm sure that they would love to grow their farm and their operation. But I'm not sure if anyone's really had a conversation with them about a market that's right here that's in need of it.
Yeah, that's a good point, Doug. And hi, nice to see
Hi.
you.
How are you, Jim?
Good. I'm an old guy who has the privilege of working with Khadijah. Old white guy. I think she likes me okay. We get along. But I will say that we cross a lot of projects. We mobilized our gleaning team to Belanders last spring to harvest sweet potato leaves, which were labor intensive, certainly. And we learned a lot, worked at Wayside in their kitchen to package those. I think a day of labor, we wound up with like 60 pounds or something. So it was, a bunch of volunteers. but there are opportunities, I think, and I think we can maximize, the opportunities there. With the schools, we work with Khadijah with the schools in terms of really thinking about culturally important meal development and doing some taste tests. And yesterday we had a meeting talking about how we can transition the leadership of that project to the Muslim community. And I don't know if it's already been tainted by being formed and, structured by a group of folks that isn't the number one. I wouldn't say it's not a number one priority, but certainly it's not as close to our culture to be designing this program. So I was talking to our Immigrant Welcome Center staff and really wanted to sit down with Riza, who was having a staff retreat on that. But I think that's kind of the next step in terms of transitioning some of this work into the organizations to lead them, but also make sure that they are fully resourced and supported. So we're not going to step out of the project. We're just going to follow the leadership of folks. And that's what I'm learning actually in terms of all the projects I'm working with on Khadijah, because she provides clear leadership around this work. And then the other piece around halal proteins, which include halal meat at Farm, trying to get the breakthrough to USDA certified. At the same time, we're working with the FANCA, which is the Islamic Food Nutrition Council of America. Amelia's at the Convergence today. Maine-based person who represents FANCA and is doing some great work here. And so, how do we get those halal products more accessible, more affordable too? I think that's part of the issue, is bridging the price gap between locally produced, because we want our farmers to thrive, but also communities, struggle to pay the premium that often is required for locally produced. So, where do we subsidize halal products in a way that supports cultural access of people who prefer those cultural foods? At the same time, we don't cut short. The farmers need to be sustainable. So those are some of the big questions we're wrestling with. And certainly with Khadijah's leadership and recognition, we have noticed that fish, obviously, because we're in Maine, should be more accessible. Shouldn't necessarily have to get it only through aquaculture, but that's a great resource, potential resource. But Daoud at the Farm Food Hub has AIP funding to purchase a smoker, which we're looking at smoking fish to begin with the use of that smoker and implementing that. So again, trying to figure out what are the preparations that different communities prefer, or that most communities will prefer, at least to get started, and to kind of make that breakthrough. So those are some of the things that we've got in the works. Jim Hanna, Cumberland County Food Security Council, for those who don't know me and where I'm based. Those are the things we have in motion, and certainly we're always open to new ideas and to hear what the community needs and what the community is looking for, and more direct routes to get there, make the food that's preferred more easy to get. So I'll stop there, but thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. We just had Mohamed join the room. I'm not sure if you'd like to just speak a little bit as to what your organization and what you guys are up to as well.
Yeah, Mohammed, I think you're on mute. I think he's trying to speak. Yeah, we still can't hear you. You're still on mute.
I didn't even say anything. I was getting ready to come on. I know. Hi everyone. Are we on an introduction line still, or?
You can go ahead and introduce yourself. We've been chatting for a little while, so introduce yourself. Tell us anything that we should know about what's going on, in your community around the subject of food, etc.
Uh, my name is Mohamed Dekow. I am one of the 6 members owning Isuken Co-op. My role is a business manager, and Isuken existing has been a while. There's a couple years we are in and out. Since the COVID is kind of kicking us off a little bit, and we have some challenge of technical problems. Late 2022, we start making progress, coming back and getting ready in 2023 season. We're very much ready right now so far, and we still in a 3.5 square on farmland, and as our members, we are in a good progress to complete. And in the community wise, there is so much things going on around, and also we are not alone, and there's other community organizations involving, and we very much focus on the food system, and we try to expand that, reaching out youth and adults farm for food, and in youth and for educational. We are looking partners who we think that we can partner to help us in a formal of education in the youth, because we face some challenges that it seems like there's a little bit barriers of the culture. Kids who were born in refugee camps and they came to America and they don't know nothing about farming. And I think Maine Co-op and C is the best partner that we have, and we gain grants that we can able to begin that education. And we have above 20 youth who registered so far, and who we are looking forward to start with. We don't know how much more we're gonna have, and we don't know how much more is gonna drop off. It's gonna be a new project that we started this 2023 season. And if there's anything I left, we also partner with a Sustainable Livelihood Relief Organization. So we have Ibrahim, and we appointed Ibrahim to speak about the youth, a little more about it. And I will ask Ibrahim to add it if there's anything I left it, and I would like to stop right there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohamed. Ibrahim.
Yeah, thank you, Mohamed. Yeah, so Mohamed did a good job explaining the farming side. He's more of the expertise in that and more involved. So with me, I'm more on the side of the youth. So we're doing a youth marketing project for this, a collaboration with the Maine Marinara NC. So far we have 2 youths that will be helping us out with, marketing, trying to give a better presence to the food truck, as well as education around farming. And so yeah, we've recently just gotten started, and I think it'd be a great way to, if like Mohamed said, a way to implement like what we're doing here to the youth. So a lot of the youth, their knowledge in farming is kind of like limited, because they're used to seeing the generic majors or job turnouts in tech and other other businesses, but like farming is something that we've had since back home. It was a familiarity to a lot of us immigrants when we came here, and to have the youth like open their eyes to that, and that they can be part of, and they can be a help and a change. That's what we're really gearing towards. So yeah, that's our plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibrahim. I would like to add to that, to the fact that we seriously need to think about moving funds to people who are doing this work and having them represent their own culture. Jim spoke a little bit about the fact that we're moving the grants that we got for the Halal Meat School project to a Muslim-led organization. And that is one of the biggest points. Just throwing money at issue doesn't really resolve the issue, because you actually don't know what are the issues, because you haven't spoken to the people who have the issues. And even if you have had multiple conversations with them, you don't have their view because you haven't lived their lives. So moving those funds, when we supporting BIPOC organization, can we make sure that the fund is residing with them? Can we make sure that they are at the table making this decision, that they are there speaking for their own people and not advocating for their own rights, and not just us guessing and using the white man lens and deciding, we think they need this, we think they need that, and a way of involving their own children so they can take over their work. I can tell you, as a mother, I've been talking a lot. Some of my kids don't want to hear about food insecurity anymore. They don't want to hear about equity anymore. And I apply it in a way that my 19-year-old who's 6'6", if he want to fight with my 5-year-old, he has to sit down while the 5-year-old is standing, so they can be eyes to eye, trying to apply a little more of equity in the conversation, where it's like, okay, if you're going to fight with the baby, you have to be as short as the baby. We need to think about these things as grown-ups. We need to think about these things as organizations. Where is the equity lens being used? Where are we letting their voice and their need being on the table, being at the table, giving them space at the table and giving them the support that they need to actually be able to make progress, not just throw, hey, here's some grants, we're giving you this fund, and then buy, and then you come back, well, we have given them funds multiple times and they haven't been able to accomplish something. You gave them the fund, but did you give them the support? You gave them the fund, but did you ask them how you can help them by just giving them money? Because immigrant children, when we bring them here or have them here, they don't really want to work at the farm. Not only just being born at the refugee camp and never being able to see your parents in their own land, grow their own food, as they're coming here, they realize, I can work in IT and make more money. Where do I want to get myself dirty and be at the farm? That transition is missing. How we make up for that is by showing, guess what? Your mom or your dad is a farmer, but their life is not that bad. They have these funds, they have this support, and they are able to succeed. The same way we're supporting white farmer. Where are we missing on supporting Black farmers? Some Black farmers I speak with, their issues are so terre à terre to me, so low, I'm like, how is this an issue? But they don't have the knowledge, and they don't have the knowledge because they don't have the support. We expect them to become American, adapt to the American system, and just ready, go. Where is the support? I see Rosie's back.
Yeah, and someone else trying to speak. I was just gonna make a point on what, like Khadija was saying. Yeah, me, I'm 27 and I recently graduated college, so I kind of consider myself a youth, or just leaving being a youth, a young adult. And I remember, when I was younger, I'd see a lot of my aunts or uncles, doing farming, which I was glad to see that they're doing something that they're familiar with, they were doing back home. and they're doing it here well. They're making a living from it. But as youths then, we were thinking, hey, you know, farming is not something us youths want to get into, because we don't think you can make a stable income. We're thinking, hey, these technology companies, people working for these other industries, they make more money. It seems like they're financially stable, or their jobs bring in that kind of income. So a lot of questions, or a lot of reasons why us youth would kind of refrain from going into farming or things like that, because we did not think there was money in it. And if there was a way to educate kids, hey, you can make a living out of this, you know, you can have a stable income from this, that'd be like another way to kind of open their eyes, or kind of shift that mindset that, oh, we need to get into jobs that are, you know, more geared towards technology or things like that, or those industries, to make good money. You know, if they can see that farming can produce that, I think that'd be one way to kind of involve the youths more in it. So just education around it, really. Thank you. And I think someone else wanted to talk. Sorry if I cut anyone off, but you can go ahead and talk. Or if you guys have any inputs or ideas, feel free to share them here.
Thank everybody. Thank everybody, everyone for speaking today. All of the guests in the room, all of the panelists, the Food Convergence for allowing this conversation to happen. And yes, if anyone has any last minute things or anything at all they'd like to add in, now will be the time.
I guess I just have one kind of question, going back to what Khadija was saying earlier about the school meals and kind of capacity that people have, and thinking about like grant funding, which has a time limit attached to it. And so I work with the Islamic Food and Nutrition Council of America, and we've done some advocacy around like the Farm Bill at the national level, federal level, but wondering if anyone on this call has been involved in sort of like some state level advocacy, or just thinking about like I submitted recently input for this like school meal input about making sure that you're being mindful of what is culturally important food, and like what is meeting faith-based dietary guidelines, as Khadija was speaking to, like that's the whole area of food insecurity. And so just wondering, like, is there an effort, or has there been an effort to try to bring that to the state level and drafting some kind of legislation around that, so that it's kind of like a longer term thing that needs to be taken into consideration? I don't know if that's not as coherent as I'd like to be at this hour. I've been on calls all day, but yeah, just wondering if anyone's like spoken with Shelly Pingree office or done something similar.
I don't believe there's been any specific legislation on school meals. And hello, Amelia, I know at the state level, I think it was LD 497 did a report on culturally important meat processing, and it was specifically called out in legislation around building the meat processing infrastructure in the state. So in terms of culturally important foods, I know that is in discussion. I think that legislation is trending toward a more detailed report than the initial recommendations. So I think that's where that's going at the moment. I know that's going to get in much of an appropriation this session. So
Thanks, Jim.
but that's as far as I know where some of the policy stuff is happening, but that is also a good realm to work in. And also, I want to refer back to something Ibrahim said about youth, and also Khadija referenced it. I think when SPCA was working with Agrarian Trust and got that 99-year rolling land trust in Wales, and for that 104 acres, one of the first things Wahid and I talked about was, you know, there's a generation of people who have farmed from Somalia, you know, 200, almost 250 people out there now. But the youth do not have that experience, and they're seeing, you know, the parents struggling, or even the grandparents struggling to get on land, you know, to have that privilege to be on the land. at the same time, they didn't see those skills being exhibited when they were in refugee camps, you know, as Mohamed Dekow referenced. So, you know, if with this resource of 100 acres, you know, how many generations can that stay vital? So that's also a question that Muhyiddin and I began talking about in terms of youth programming. And, you know, the youth who are arriving with immigrant refugee families, but also, you know, all the youth in Maine who are interested in getting on land, and how do we make that a viable option? So, I mean, I think that's a real question as we think about, you know, the ethnic menu, because I think in many ways the youth are much more transcending around some of the barriers that we were confronted with when we were growing up, some of the older generations around race, and understand that it's pretty arbitrary, really, and white isn't a real thing, and yet it still manifests in structural oppressions. But I think, you know, the next generations are going to be picking up a number of steps ahead of what we knew when we were growing up. And so coming together as one community who are addressing concerns about climate, and also getting back and reconnect, think about how we can make it easier for young people to produce the food their generation's going to need.
In that aspect, I also want to speak about the fact that we kind of need to preserve this Black farmer idea on how, I'm really trying to find the right word for this so I don't sound like, how do we keep white people out of this business? I'm just gonna say it. I hate that there are white farmers that are growing African crop. It's not a thing. It's just not a thing. It should not be a thing. We have enough farmers who can grow African crop if we empower them, if only we empower them to grow their own crop and feed their own people. And I understand some of it comes as, oh, it's a donation. We didn't really charge you anything. We didn't really charge the food bank, or we didn't really charge the food pantry any money. But by you donating, because you have the privilege of donating, by you donating, you literally stealing from them. You're stealing from this Black farmer who won't be able to sell their produce because you have a way of donating that produce. I'm sorry, what? Can I have 5 more minutes? Sorry, my son just came back from school and he's 5 and he's upset. The fact that we have white farmer in these Black spaces isn't okay. If you really have land, you wanna help, why don't you invite a few Black farmers and say, hey, I got this land, I got this resource. Do you wanna grow your food here? Do you wanna grow the food for your people here? And have white farmers still grow their Brussels sprouts and their lettuce and whatever else they've been growing. I'm really not trying to make the conversation about race, but this conversation is about race. And it's not about whose misery is worse, but it is still about whose misery is worse. So not to be on the nose and relate everything about race, but as a person of color, as a Black woman who sleeps Black, wake up Black, even to leave my house, I have to remember that this is what everybody's saying, my color and my hijab. And it is about my color and my hijab. It isn't just about who I am as a person. All those things do exist, and ignoring it is just what makes the situation worse. So it's about finding that courage of saying, listen, white farmer, thank you. but this isn't really your space. We really can't have you here growing this African crop. What else can you do to support farmer of color to grow the crop for their own people, to feed their own people? Because we understand you want to help, but can you help in that way that is more useful to us and useful to our children, so we can bring our children to this work and have them do this work in the future?
Thank you, Khadija. I think that's a really strong way to end this discussion. To be honest, it's who are we allowing in the room? Who are we giving the power? How are we transferring? How are we restructuring the way that we're doing things and looking at things in this space, and really in all of the spaces in a country that is, you know, built on racism. So I thank you for being, oh, hello. Hello, how you doing? So I thank you. I thank you for being open. I thank you for being honest. Thank you to everyone who has spoken today. And yeah, I invite you to really sit with all of this, take a moment to really, or more than a moment, to really digest and figure out your positionality, you know, in everything that we're speaking about today. With that being said, I think we're gonna call it over from here. So thank you all so much. Appreciate it. Take care.